Hello, welcome everybody to the bonus episode of Elite City this week. Yes, you get to hear us talk again. This time we are going to go over the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view. Um, we will start covering Ring of Honor once Ring of Honor happens more often, I imagine. We'll cross that road when we get to it. But as for right now, we're giving you all this. If you watch the pay-per-view, uh, you know, we're going to go over it like we do our normal Dynamite Rampage thing. If you haven't watched the pay-per-view yet, this is your warning. Shut it off because we are going to give you spoilers.
Yes.
So, on that note, what a pay-per-view, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I expected it to be good, but it was good.
We're not going to cover the whole pre-show. We're going to go over like the highlights of the pre-show. But the 1 hour pre-show, my match of the night for the pre-show was honestly the women's match, but every match was stellar. They put on a heck of a show.
Yeah, and they opened with the right. Well, we'll talk about it in a second, but they opened with the right match to get the crowd into it.
Oh, yes, they did. But just the quick notes on the pre-show. It looks like Colt Cabana is going to be full-time ROH, which I'm totally okay with.
Yeah.
He opened the show. He looked great. Kind of looked like he got a little emotional at the end of his match, which I thought was super cool. I know Ring of Honor means a lot to him.
Yeah.
So I was awesome to hear his music and just see him again. So it really looks like Tony Khan is honoring, excuse the pun, I didn't even mean it, is honoring the past of Ring of Honor as opposed to just trying to like buy the brand and start anew.
Yeah,
So
it'll be interesting to see what they do, how they balance that, because they obviously want to, quote, pun wise, honor Ring of Honor.
Yes.
But it's not like it's not going to be a tribute show. Like every show is not just going to be, hey, remember this guy? Here he is again.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have to move it forward. So how they do that will be fun to see.
And throughout the show, we learned that they have signed a lot of people long term.
Yeah.
The Trust Busters are back. That's Davari and Slim J. If you had never watched any of their matches until the pay-per-view, go back and watch their matches. Slim J, it sounds like a dumb rapper name, and that's how he dresses. But he is a fantastic wrestler. Watch anything that Slim J does. And I mean, everybody loves Cheeseburger. Dude, he's crushed it again. I mean, it's the dumbest name and dumb gimmick, but
yeah, you have to like not let the dumb name distract you from it. But yeah.
Prince Nana came back in a weird situation.
I still don't know exactly what happened. Like, did Tully Blanchard just decide from what I was reading, Tully Blanchard just decided he like doesn't want to travel or doesn't want to do this? Like, it's weird why he's just not there now.
And I mean, all due respect to Tully Blanchard, he deserves to be able to say that. But
right.
It kind of seemed like a very last minute thing considering.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, Prince Nana's back.
And he fits, like he works, it fits with them.
Oh, so. Yeah. And I thought it was funny. He made the point to say that he purchased Tully Blanchard Enterprises. Like, oh, okay. The Gates of Agony and Brian Cage, again with Prince Nana, they look good. Brian Cage, I mean, actually on television, so I'm okay
he gets
with
that. He gets to be on shows now.
Yeah, and the match of the whole pre-show was Allison Kay versus Willow Nightingale. They were fantastic. That was lights out. And I was like, oh, okay, these girls just set the bar, and let's start the show. And little did I know how they were going to start the show. My God.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
Uh,
it was a good choice. I mean, if you weren't gonna have, and the tag match main eventing was a good choice. Like it was, I liked it.
and I love. I mean, you pointed it out a couple weeks ago. Tony does this with Rampage every now and again. The match that you think is going to be the main event opens the show.
Right.
And the first match on the card was the World Heavyweight title match, Claudio versus Jonathan Gresham,
Yeah.
with Regal on commentary. The whole match was a 50-50 crowd. An insanely technical wrestling match. I would say it was the most technical match, but there was a pure match on
Right.
this card, so that was more. uh, I always say Claudio slash Cesaro, pound for pound, is the strongest man in pro wrestling.
Yeah, he's freakishly strong.
Yes.
Like he
And
doesn't look. He does. I mean, he's clearly built, but he doesn't look
right,
like he's not. He doesn't look like Brian Cage or something. Like he doesn't look like that.
exactly.
But he's
And
very strong.
he deadlifted Grisham. Grisham was on the apron. Claudio is in the ring. He deadlifts him over his shoulder and suplexes him from a standing position. It
Yeah.
was the most incredible thing I have ever seen. Uh, I mean, this was pro wrestling glory. This was the most Ring of Honor match I have seen in a very long time.
Yeah, this show
And,
it definitely felt the whole show. I like that it didn't feel
yes,
like another AEW show. Like it felt like it was Ring
yes.
of Honor.
And you even texted me during the show. You're like, you know, does this feel like Ring of Honor to you? And I was like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because I never watched original Ring of Honor outside of YouTube.
Right.
Like I didn't watch their regular shows, so I you are much more of an ROH person than I am. But yeah,
And what made me laugh after I said that, I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that it
it
could
was
have been
AEW. Yeah,
it could have been an AEW. Like I was like, that's how good it is. I mean, like I even messaged you. They had this stupid, cheesy heavy metal playing in between all of the
yeah,
matches, and it was it was very very well done. And brand new Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion. Much props to Claudio. Very well deserved. Can't believe he's never held a belt in professional wrestling.
yeah.
Uh, well, he was a tag champion. He's never
He
held
was
a
a
singles
I
belt.
think he was a U.S. champion in WWE, but
Oh,
not
okay.
like he didn't hold a major belt. Like the U.S. title to
Okay.
at the
Right.
time
Okay.
doesn't mean much.
Yeah, especially there. I
Yeah,
mean, some companies it means a lot, but yeah.
right.
Okay. Uh, but I mean, he is now the face of Ring of Honor and very well deserved. I, super cool. Um, super like very cool way to start the show too.
Yeah, and he's a great choice to be the face of the new slash old Ring of Honor because he has Ring of
Yes,
Honor legacy, but
yes,
he's also a modern new guy. Sort of, he's new to the AEW scene. He's new out of WWE, so he's the
and
perfect
well,
face for it.
and I was just going to say, with him being out of WWE, he has fans. Like, not
Right,
that Jonathan Gresham doesn't have fans, but Jonathan Gresham has a hardcore type fan. Like,
right.
literally the casual fan. If you'd say, "Hey, do you remember Cesaro?" They'd be like,
Yeah,
"Oh, yeah, from the bar. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." Like, okay, well,
yeah,
he's now Claudio Castagnoli, and he's here. Oh, I'm gonna check that out. I like
right.
him. You know.
Yeah, he's a good choice to, and obviously he can wrestle. He can do
Oh
everything, so
yeah.
it fits.
Uh, I thought, much congratulations. Very well deserved. Fantastic match. I would say it was like the third best match on the card, and
Yeah.
that's saying a lot.
It was slightly shorter than I thought it was going to be, but it was still
Yeah.
very good.
Yes. Um, well, right after that uh, match, we had a backstage with Lexi Nair, who she interviewed Daniel Garcia, and I just thought it was funny that Daniel Garcia called AEW the big leagues. I don't know if that was a shot at Eric Bischoff and WCW, because
I,
wasn't their tagline where the
I
big boys play or something?
Yeah, I also like that. First, when I saw this, I thought, oh, he's just being like a cocky heel. He's insulting ROH. He doesn't want to be there. He thinks AEW is bigger than it. But
Right.
he's a sports entertainer,
Correct.
so of course he doesn't want to be in ROH. That's not where he wants to be. So it fits too. And like later on, I think he like gave the finger when he was to the screen as he was
Oh
walking
yeah,
out. Like
yeah.
it
Flip the
fits. It wasn't just like he hates being there because he's a heel. He hates being there because it's like it goes against
it's
what he thinks
below
he
him.
is.
Like,
It's like
yeah,
he's not a wrestler. He's not a ROH
yes,
wrestler. He's better than that.
yeah. And well, see, technically, he should be fired because he
Right.
broke the pure rules. Like you have
Right.
to have adhere to the code of honor, and he didn't shake his hand at the end.
Right.
But
There
we'll
you
get
go.
to that in a second.
Yep.
Uh, the next match, which was the Righteous versus Dalton Castle and the Boys. I know you love Dalton Castle,
Yeah,
and everybody loves Dalton
I've
Castle.
only seen him since AEW, but he's fun. I like him.
Oh, he's so fun. Uh, someone tweeted out uh, during the weekend that now that he has the 6-man tag belts with the boys, they need to they need to form. Oh wait, what did they call it? Castlehausen. And just have Danhausen form for one of the boys. Uh, I love the 6-man tag belts. Ring of Honor always did that very well.
Yeah, I was
I
actually
thought that
because
was
they haven't mentioned them much. I was surprised they continued to. That they're surprised they're keeping them. Not that that they're not good, just because
yes.
they hadn't mentioned them really since Tony's been around. I was
And
surprised that they were still there.
yes. Um, they did mention during this match that Dalton Castle and of course the boys signed long-term deals with Ring of Honor.
Yep.
They didn't mention that about the Righteous, but I I mean I have right here in the notes that you saw. I would love to see a Righteous feud with the House of Black.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Those, I mean, the Righteous is basically a cult, and
Right.
the House of Black have their religious overtones, and the Righteous wear all white. The House of Black is in all black. It just works,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
they can all talk, but
For sure.
I'm that might be a little bit of wishful thinking, but I hope one day we see that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like it was a great match. Dalton Castle did all his funny stuff. The boys did their feud. Excuse me. The boys did their few things. I mean, they're actual wrestlers, but they don't really wrestle all the
That's not
time.
what they're there for. Yeah.
They're definitely not there for that. But hey, we have new 6-man tag champions when Dalton Castle and the boys. Uh, the pure championship match was probably my personal favorite of the night. It's not going to get the love that the Briscoes and FTR got
Right.
because it was. If you showed this to a casual fan, they would say, "Oh my God, turn this off! I am bored."
Right. Yeah. No,
I
for
mean,
a specific audience.
yeah, and I mean,
And definitely an
uh,
ROH audience. Like ROH
yeah, oh, yeah,
fans that they appreciate this more than the wider wrestling audience.
Danny Garcia versus Wheeler Yuta, Regal on commentary again. Oh, Regal was also on commentary for the Claudio match. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, I really like that touch of whenever it's a Blackpool Combat Club match, Regal's on commentary. I like that continued.
And it was really cool. Ian Icaboni brought up a point. Um, Regal gave Garcia credit, and he was like, "Well, why are you doing that? That sounds like you're talking against your guy." And he goes, "No, no, 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 no. That's what you want." And he was like, "You want him to get the advantage on my guy because I want to see how my guy responds.
Yeah, he does that a lot with. I think he did that in the Dynamite match too. He really wants Yuta to be tested by the people he's wrestling. So it's a cool little thing.
Yeah, it's like what a real coach would say.
Right.
Like, okay, we trained for this. You know what to do, but here it is in a non-training situation. Let's see how you react. Like, it makes it more real.
Right.
I said, I'll take this to the grave, even though it'll never happen. But AEW needs more pure rules matches. I would love if they had a pure rules belt. I don't think they will.
I feel like they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave that to ROH, but yeah.
Yeah, or at least for now, to maybe if when ROH gets TV, if the fans latch onto it, maybe Tony will have an AEW pure belt or something equivalent. I'll swear by this too. I think this was Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta backstage saying, "Hey, let's go out there and let's just fight, and we're gonna apologize later if we really connect with anything."
a lot of hard shots there. Yeah, for sure.
Tons. Like, I mean, they beat each other up. Well, I mean, it took 14 and a half minutes to get the first rope break. And excuse me, I should probably explain the rules, huh? If you're on, you know what? No, because if you're listening to this, you know what
you know the rules if you've gotten this far in this podcast.
Yeah, and if you don't know, hey, I warned you to turn it off because that means you didn't watch. They explained the rules at the beginning.
Right. Right.
But you get 3 rope breaks, and then after that, you can be submitted within the ropes. You could be.
Yeah.
You can't have a rope break for a pinfall. It's super cool, but it took.
It's a cool twist. It's a cool twist to matches to put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's pro wrestling with a legit rule base that isn't bent. Like, let's face it, rules in pro wrestling are very loose.
Right.
So this gives it more of a like collegiate wrestling feel.
Right.
Wheeler Yuta retained with a fantastic match, and like I said, it was personally my match of the night, but I don't think the average person would say that. Everyone's going to say that the main event was the match of the night. Moving right along, just like the show, it was one banger after another. We had the legit brother versus brother match, Roosh versus Dragon Lee. Again, the physicality in this match. Caprice Coleman put it best that they're going to have a heck of a time at the dinner table this week after this one because they did not hold back.
I like the physical lucha style. Like, it still has the athleticism of a lucha match, but it's a lot more harder hit. It's a lot harder hitting than 90s WCW cruiserweight matches.
Yeah.
It seems to be a new sort of twist on the lucha style that a lot of wrestlers are doing now, and I like it.
I thought it. Yeah, I agree, and I thought it was the perfect match to put after the slower paced, pure match. Like, you were getting top rope spots, and I said the only reason I cared about this match, I texted you, is because the 40 seconds Excalibur talked about it on Rampage.
For sure.
He gave me the whole story.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were fighting. There was some infighting within their group, and they were just going to settle it here.
Right.
And okay, and they did.
Yeah.
Dragon Lee probably did the most insane move I have ever seen in a wrestling match. To explain it to people if you didn't see it and you're still listening, how Darby Allin runs and uses he'll run the ropes and then do the suicide dive between the top and middle rope onto the floor. Dragon Lee did this, but all the way to the Spanish announce table where Roosh was laying and put him through the table.
Yeah, that was nuts.
My my legit notes say middle rope jump. Oh God, what? Unreal. I was like, I had like Doritos in one hand, and I was like writing stuff down, and then that happened, and I was like, I like threw the chips down, and like that's what I jumbled down. I'd never seen that done ever.
No.
Like so much could have went wrong.
Yeah.
Like if he nips the rope, then slides under the table,
Right.
or just like misses the table altogether. Like, I mean, that makes like the top rope jump through the table like almost look weak now.
Right.
Like I hate to say that because it's still
It's
amazing,
one of
but
those things where they've like done something that shouldn't be able to be done. Like it doesn't make sense,
yeah,
but it like
like
how it's possible, but it works.
yeah,
It was possible. Like a person did do that. But
correct, correct. And well, Roosh got his revenge on his brother because he hit a release German from the apron and threw him to the floor. Again, the trust level. Again, I know it's your brother, and they probably been wrestling each other since they've been 2 years old. I mean, but I mean, you see release Germans all the time where people end up like high on their shoulders, almost neck,
right.
and they're just landing in a wrestling ring. They don't have the extra, what's that? I don't know, 3.5 feet from floor to the top of the apron to
Right.
over rotate. And I mean, he landed perfect, but still, the that was pretty insane. And needless to say, that is what got Roosh the win. He got like a heel type win. Uh, and Jose, the assistant, said that their beef was squashed, and I guess Roosh is still the number two in the. I'm not even going to attempt to say there. I have it spelled
Yeah.
insanely wrong in my notes. So I'm not even going to attempt
Just say
because
their
I
faction.
they're very very familial faction in AAA.
Yes.
We'll say. All in all, it was a great match. Very exciting. Like I said, I don't think you could have picked a better match to follow the Pure Rules match.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And now Roosh
uh,
is getting a interim title shot.
yes, and I thought that was very cool how they explained it.
I like that they explained it. Like I know that there's rankings, and I know that
Mhm.
there's some people are going to be. When I first heard that, I was like, "What?" But then they explained it, and
Yeah,
you can kind of, it's wrestling, right? So you can kind of get away with anything if you explain
correct.
why it's happening, and
Yep.
they did. So I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, he's
And
not going to
again,
win, obviously. Like he's not going
no
to win,
way,
so it's
no way.
like that's fine. It'll be a good match, and they explained why it's happening, so good.
Oh, and I just thought of something. Maybe this could set up Moxley versus Andrade.
Oh yeah, that would be good. I would like to see that.
Oh, yes, that's way better than Mox Jericho too.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, like Roosh loses, and then Andrade's mad, and he could be like, "Well, obviously you can't get the job done. I guess I'm gonna have to get the job done." And he
Yeah,
challenges
that
Mox.
would be cool.
Yeah, let's go.
That would
Okay,
be cool.
now I'm hyped. Uh, women's match for the women's ROH World Title didn't end the way I thought it was going to. This was my surprise. I
Yeah, I
definitely,
was surprised. You mentioned afterwards that it makes sense, but I was surprised that when it happened.
yeah. Um, it, we all, I mean, we talk about on the podcast all the time. We're both Penguins slash NHL fans,
Right.
and whenever a coach makes a shake up to the lines, and sometimes you're like, why the heck's this guy playing up on the second line? He's a third line guy, and
Right.
he gets moved up, and all of a sudden there's this weird instant chemistry, and then this person becomes a star. These two have wrestling chemistry.
Yeah, they do. I like their styles of, Mercedes is more of a, heavy hitter, and Serena's more of a technical wrestler, but they do it well together.
Yes.
They mix their styles well together. They do a good job.
Yeah, and they both know how to get to like it's not like, oh, Mercedes jumps off the top rope and then she does her like hard hitting stuff and then Deeb puts her like in a wrist lock. Like
Right.
no, it like they chain it together and
Yeah,
it's
they
like
mix it together really well.
yeah, it's like almost like they're dancing. Like it's the
My
chain.
controversial opinion on Serena Deeb is everyone wants to be Bret Hart. She's Bret Hart. Like she wrestles at a
She's
level of
totally Bret Hart. She's like the
she
same
wrestles
beast.
at a Bret Hart-ish level. Like
She
it's
does.
very good. And the fact that when you watch Bret Hart in the 90s, he had really good matches with people like Kevin Nash or The Undertaker, who at the time was not known for great wrestling
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah.
But he managed to mix his style really well with both of them. And she does that too. She mixes whatever she's doing with the other person, and it works
Yeah.
every time. Like she could
Every
wrestle
time.
anyone and it works.
Yes.
And Mercedes is not untalented. Like she's very good. So it makes
Oh
a
yeah.
good match.
Yeah.
It makes it. That's not a knock on her. I'm just saying Serena Deeb is at a completely different level than most wrestlers, and Martinez keeps up with her, and they have good matches.
Yeah. Uh, you know, the scary part of the match, I will say, until I saw it from the other angle, um, Mercedes gave Serena a release German from the second rope into the ring,
Yeah,
from the corner. Excuse me, I almost sneezed. And it looked like she landed really high, almost all on her neck. But when they
yeah,
showed like the side angle, I mean, it was close, but she definitely just she hit her shoulders and she had her head tucked. She was fine, but other than that, and it wasn't. I don't want to say it was a botch. Like it just
no,
looked like it was. It looked way worse than it was. We'll say,
yeah,
but uh, like I said, I was surprised. I definitely thought Serena was going to win, but it makes more sense for Mercedes to win. I
yeah,
mean, they were both Ring of Honor. They were both in Ring of Honor, I should say. But to me, Serena, and again, no knock at against Mercedes, but Serena fits more in AEW than she does Ring of Honor.
yeah. And I think they kind of need her more in AEW. Like
And
ROH
I
is
yes,
it's not going to be like a developmental show. Tony said that, and I don't think it will be. I think it's going to be its own program. It's not
oh
going to
yeah,
run
for sure,
as their. It's not going to be their NXT.
right,
But Mercedes is going to be wrestling a lot of women. I'm assuming a lot of people who are in or the new ROH will be less experienced than the people who
yes,
are on AEW outside of a few people like Claudio or Samoa Joe.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so Mercedes can do great work with a lot of younger wrestlers and do a really good job with it. And Serena Deeb can take people to a level where they need to be for TV, like her match with
Yes,
Hannah Jay. Like
yeah,
she doesn't just get good matches out of people. She puts them on she shows them how to work, TV matches. And
yeah,
AEW is going to be obviously, even if they're both equal, AEW is the higher company. Like it has the better time slot.
yeah,
It's had
yeah,
more
for
prestige at this
sure,
point. So she needs to she'll do a really good job at making really good TV matches with basically anyone. Someone like an Anna Jay or someone who's close to being a star but isn't quite there yet. They can have
yeah,
a thing with her and she'll do a good job of it.
yeah, and that showed in this match too.
Yeah.
Like
And none of
it's
this is a
not a
knock on Mercedes. Like she's talented
no, 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 no,
herself.
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
not saying she's not.
for sure. But there aren't many on Serena's level. Like you
Yeah.
said, she's on a Bret Hart level
Yeah,
where you can
she's
put her in there with
yeah,
anybody and they will look good.
right.
Um, the the next match, it was no surprise. In hindsight, we talked about on part one of how sometimes AEW kind of leaves you hanging, but then makes up for it in the
Right.
grand scheme of things. Well, I've been complaining about Samoa Joe never answering Jay
Right.
Leto's thing. Oh, did he answer?
Yeah, it was a little strange that he wasn't on TV for so long, but they made up for it.
Yeah. Jay Lethal comes to the ring and he's doing his stuff. He's halfway to the ring. Joe's music hits and Joe sprints out of the back and just annihilates Lethal on the runway as he's about to hit the ring. And they went uh, well over 10 minutes on the outside before the match even started. It was so cool the way they did it.
I wonder if that was a stylistic choice because of the feud these guys are in, or if are they protecting Samoa Joe a little bit? I mean, he's had injuries. And it's having a brawl sort of thing outside the ring is a bit safer than, I don't know if it's safer, but I wrestlers who are more injured, who are more injury prone, can do a brawl. Like, Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania did a brawl outside the ring because that's what he could do at his level. So is Joe, they protecting him? Are they trying to avoid injury with him? Or is this just a choice they made because of the type of feud that they've had?
I think this was the 17 years in the making rematch.
Yeah. And it makes sense. It's understandable why they would start with that because of the feud that they've had and their history. And
it was so good. Everybody loves Joe.
Yeah.
And when the match finally started, this is the part I talked about in part one. Satnam Singh gets thrown out because he was holding Joe up, and
right.
So when the bell finally rings, the referee throws him out. Well, I'm not going to repeat it because I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of the way he talks, but he swore in English.
Right.
And it did not come over as powerful as you would expect with his thick accent. And that's when I told you, I literally wound the TV. I was like, I need to hear that again. That was hilarious. And it was just funny because it was unexpected. But even Satnam Singh doing the run in, I hate to make it sound like we talked about in part one, when a guy is over 7 feet tall, the bar is very low for them.
Right.
And I mean, this guy played in the NBA. He's not a schlub. He's an athlete, but he is a surprise that he can move the way that he can move.
Yeah.
I thought it was super cool that Ian Icaboni and Caprice Coleman brought up Samoa Joe being a former NXT champion.
Yeah.
That is something that is a very AEW thing, to recognize that they are not the only
and other companies exist and they don't forget what you did because you
are here now. Somewhere else. Right. Well, that's the way sports work.
Right.
If you win the Stanley Cup and they go to another team, they don't take your ring away.
Right. And they're not promoting, especially because AEW, I guess I can kind of see why WWE does that, because they're by far the biggest company and you may only know that they exist and not know anyone else exists. So by mentioning another company, you're letting people know that they exist. But in reverse, I mean, everyone watching AEW knows that Samoa Joe is an NXT. They're not going to be like, what? WWE? Yeah. I've never heard of this promotion. I will check it out. So that's not something they have to worry about.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it makes it feel more like real sports because other leagues exist. I mean, Yager refuses to play in the NHL and he should be on the Penguins, but
it's not like he doesn't exist now that he's in a different league. Yeah.
Maybe that's why he doesn't age.
Yeah.
he went to play in the Czech Super League and
he no longer exists.
It no longer exists. He just we always see him at that age. Anyway. Wow, that was weird but hilarious. Like 2 people will understand that joke. And one of them's talking to me right now. The other one's back on track. Joe kicked out of Lethal Injection, and Caprice Coleman told me that is apparently the first time that's ever happened. Was not aware.
Yeah, because on Rampage even they hyped it up as, oh, nobody kicks out of that.
I know. I thought that was a very cool callback.
Which you only gathered as a a point in retrospect. Like as it happened, you weren't thinking, "Oh, that means he's going to kick out of it." Like I didn't think that at
Yes.
all. But in
Yeah.
retrospect, you realize, "Oh, okay, that's why they did it. That's kind of cool."
And the look on Joe's face when he rolled Lethal over to make him tap, it literally looked like he was strangling him. His eyes were
Yeah.
bulging. He was like, his face was red. Looked like, oh, I mean, he looked like he was about to kill someone.
Yeah.
Joe retains, which I was. They could have went 50-50. I literally didn't care who won, just like the main event. Did not care who won the main event
Right.
either. Uh, but it was a very. I'm happy Joe won. I hope that this isn't over though. I
Yeah,
would
I want to
really
know
like them.
where this goes now.
Yes. Jay Lethal is Ring of Honor. Like, I mean, he was. Oh, I forget the name of the. He was like in one of their top stables with Kevin
Okay.
Steen, and I can't think of the name of it. That's gonna kill me. Anyways, but they were the big thing. Uh, the only thing I'm gonna complain about this pay per view, we need to hire Truth Martini. Come on, Tony, hire Truth Martini. He's the greatest manager ever. Come on, hire him. He's awesome. Okay, main event. Uh, Tag team title match. 2 out of 3 falls. 60-minute time limit. FTR and the Briscoes. FTR claims to be the best tag team in the world. Briscoes claim to be the best tag team in the world. And the Young Bucks claim to be the best tag team in the world.
Right.
All three of them, we need a three-way eventually.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how we talked about in episode 1, the Briscoes will probably never be on Dynamite or Rampage, but I wonder if they could be on an AEW pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know.
You know, because that has no affiliation with Turner at that
Right.
point. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, so if we could somehow get that at like maybe a Forbidden Door next year.
I mean, because they it's not like they haven't mentioned them on AEW. They have.
Correct. Yeah, and they even showed their little graphics. So
Right.
um, I putting that out in the world, to
Yeah.
let it emanate,
Yeah.
throwing that out there. Very surprising start. They started off very slow. It didn't last long, but the
Right.
first the first 2 to 5 minutes uh, was just a very slow feeling out process and 50-50 crowd the entire match. There were actually 2 dudes I noticed in the front row who, um, when the Briscoes got the first fall, like they clapped, and then when it got tied up 1-1, they clapped again, and then the one looked at the other one and said, literally, I read his lips, and he's like, "I don't care who wins this." Like it was like it was no one needed to care.
Yeah, I don't think anyone like I assumed FTR would win, but no one's going to be upset with any outcome of this match.
Well, see, I was thinking the Briscoes were going to win, and that's how we were going to get the Bucks FTR because they
Okay.
both just
Yeah.
lost their belts.
Right.
Oh, woe is me type deal, and then be like, well, hey, wait a minute, didn't we just have a thing? Let's continue our thing. Like
Right.
that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
boy, did the Briscoes put on a show though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're. I think I could be wrong, so if I'm wrong, someone feel free to yell at me. I think they are the longest tenured Ring of Honor people left. Um, I'm pretty sure. So because
Yeah,
they
I
were
don't
there
know.
until the end, I
Right.
think. But well, they will get those belts back. I mean, it's just a given. Uh,
Yeah.
FTR even the score 1-1, and I mean, obviously, I mean when this match was announced, everybody knew it was going to go to 3 falls.
Yeah, that I don't think I've ever seen a 2 out of 3 falls match that doesn't go to 3 falls.
I think there was one in ECW,
Okay.
and remember, I mean, Paul Heyman would do this stuff all the time. Uh, like if it was an elimination match, you'd eliminate the champions
The
or
champion
the
first, yeah.
champion, and then so you're guaranteed a new champion. Well, one
Right.
time, it could have been like the Dudleys wrestled somebody and they got two in a row, and
Right.
like the crowd went bananas.
Yeah, that's
Well,
I would like to see it happen sometimes because it's surprising, but
I thought it was going to be tied 1-1 and we were going to get the 60-minute draw.
yeah.
And
Oh, and then they
I
could go to
mean,
overtime like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
well, I was going to say they could either do that or they could just make the internet really mad and have the main event end.
Yeah.
And the internet would not be happy with that.
People would be very upset. But yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
a cool story.
Oh, it'd be a great story because then what do you do? Like,
Right.
but, FTR got two in a row at the end um, to retain. And, again, they shook the Briscoes' hands. The Briscoes played it off really
That pile
well.
driver that ended the match was nuts. I don't think I've seen that.
Gnarly.
I don't
That
think I've
was
seen that before.
gnarly. No, I've never seen that. It again, the trust level and the
Yeah.
professionalism that a lot of these uh moves and matches on
Though
this
I have
pay
to
per
say,
view.
Dax, I think, was technically being pinned for a little bit there after he hit that.
Yes. Well, I mean,
And I think
let's
he
go.
realized it too, because like he was gonna lay there to like sell
Yeah,
the exhaustion, but I think he realized, oh wait, I'm actually being pinned, and then rolled him over.
yeah. Um, let's not forget the ref getting knocked out. I skipped that over in my
Right.
notes. So technically, the Briscoes did get
Yeah.
the winning
So
pin.
they could always do another match
There's
here.
well, there has to be another match,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be like a cage match
Yeah, they have
or
to step it up after a two out of
yeah,
three falls. So
yeah. So we're gonna get number three. Um, oh no, I was gonna say maybe we get that at Battle of the Belts, but I don't think we'll see the
right. I
Briscoes
don't think
on
so.
television. Um, but all in all, this, like I said, this was not my personal match of the night. Mine was the pure championship match of the pay per view, but this was a damn good tag team wrestling match.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
I'd give the pay per view all in all. I'd give it a 8.5 out of 10. It was a solid show. Like I said, we learned a lot of. Oh, the Briscoes also signed a long term deal with Ring of Honor, so they will
Right.
probably be retiring from uh, Ring of Honor, which good for them. Like, there's not a lot of, uh, especially in pro wrestling, guys working for one company ever, and
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's pretty
sure
cool.
that's the only company they ever worked for.
Yeah.
So that'll be really cool. Um, but like I said, all in all, good pay per view. What were your thoughts on the pay per view?
Yeah,
Like,
it was a
how
good
did you
show.
rate it?
I mean, like I said, I liked that it felt different from an AEW show. It's clearly not an AEW show, which I liked. I liked that
Right.
it was it was just outside of I think was Danny Garcia the only promo
Uh, yeah.
and
Sanjay Dutt had,
on the main show. Yeah, I saw
yeah,
okay, Sanjay Dutt, yeah.
yeah. Sanjay
But
Dutt had one on the pre-show, but the main
I
show,
like
yeah,
because it was just wrestling matches. Like it was a wrestling match followed
yeah,
by a wrestling match followed, and that's
yeah,
what ROH to me seems like it should be. And I think
yeah,
that's what it seems like it should like that's what Tony Khan is aiming for too. And
yeah,
it was a good show. It wasn't even hurt by the fact that a lot of these matches had no actual build
yeah,
because they didn't. I mean, the RH doesn't have a TV show, so they couldn't build a lot of them. But that wasn't a problem. I think it could be a problem going forward. Like AEW can't just keep having these shows that
right,
happen kind of in a vacuum. But for this show, it was great. I liked it.
yeah. And I mean, even some of the matches, like the 6-man tag belt match was literally announced like Wednesday. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure
like
that they knew beforehand, but still,
yeah, and there was no build to it really, but it
no,
worked.
yeah, totally worked. And I'm happy that Ring of Honor's back. Ring of Honor holds a special place for me, but uh, this proved that Ring of Honor was back. Like, Supercard of Honor was like, oh, okay, it really is back. But this was a very Ring of Honor show. Like, it was not AEW Ring of Honor. It
Right.
was actual Ring of Honor.
They haven't announced anything for going forward. I wonder what their next show will be.
I was thinking the same thing. They have not.
I know our ROH usually runs Final Battle like in December-ish.
Yes, but they have not even.
They haven't announced anything.
Yeah. Well, this one wasn't announced until like what, about May, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't announced that far in advance.
They because they went right from, they announced it in May, then all of June, like all of May led into Forbidden Door, then
Right.
Forbidden Door happened, and all of June led into this. So,
Right.
well, so yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see something announced at it could be the Canadian pay-per-view, huh?
That's true.
Ooh,
ROH
there's
has
rumors.
done Canadian shows too, so they could always do that.
Oh, now see, I'll yell if you get to go to Ring of Honor before me. No, I'd be happy for it. It'd be awesome.
I know they've done shows in Toronto, like at a smaller venue, obviously, but they've done shows in Toronto. So
Okay, well,
I don't know if that would be AEW's like that. I don't think that would be they'd have that be their Canadian debut.
No, their Canadian debut will be all AEW.
It'll be an AEW show, but they might announce it.
100%.
They might announce it at like All Out, or they might announce it
Oh,
somewhere
that's what I
along
mean.
there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be
Okay.
cool.
Well,
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, same here.
It's nice that ROH is around.
It's very, very. So happy. Before we get to the big elephant in the room, which that's how we're going to end this. No rants in this one. Well, it's basically a giant rant. But,
it'll be a rant. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, it's an unplanned rant.
Yes.
I didn't put this in the notes. This just come off the top of my head right now. Obviously, we heard the rumors this week that AEW quite possibly might run Skydome.
Yeah, it's possible.
How insane would that be? Like,
because it seems like, I mean,
that
based on
seems
the leaks
really
that have come
big for
out,
them.
they want to do it for a Canada show, and Toronto is the most likely place for the first Canada show.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be in the winter, it might be hard to book the Scotiabank Arena because that's the Raptors and the Leafs are playing. And if it's going to be in December,
okay, I didn't realize Scotiabank held basketball too. It would be.
Yeah, it has NBA and NHL, so it's going to be booked up. And they can't do it outside. Obviously, it's Canada in December, correct. So that's not going to happen. So yeah, Rogers Center / Skydome is. And then who was it? Was it Meltzer or who pointed out like what sort of stadium do you think they could fill?
Do you think they could sell 40,000?
I think they could. If they'd have to book it, they'd have to tell us about it soon.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
They'd have to give you a lot of time to buy it, and they'd have to. I mean, they have enough Canadians on the roster that they could hype them up.
Oh,
like they have, Kenny Omega, they have Christian, they have Jericho.
Ethan.
I think they could do it if they gave it enough time, and if it has to be a big pay-per-view. Obviously, they're not going to.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have like Rampage at Skydome,
right?
Or Dynamite.
Even like Grand Slam, who has 20,000. It's a Dynamite Rampage show. I think they couldn't do that. I think they'd have to have it be a pay-per-view.
Yeah, it would definitely have to be a pay-per-view. But boy, I mean, and also obviously they wouldn't run Skydome every single time, but
right
for a debut,
I
mean, obviously you live in Canada. Is there hype up there for AEW?
We don't get ratings reported the same way you guys get ratings reported. So we don't really know how well. From what I know, Rampage Dynamite airs on TSN here, and from what I've heard, it gets pretty good ratings. It does pretty well. Okay. But Rampage airs on only online. It's not on a TV station. It's on TSN's website basically, or their app.
Oh, okay.
So Rampage doesn't do well because it's not on TV. But I think Dynamite does pretty well. I think it gets pretty good ratings, and TSN I think keeps it on. They have 5 TSNs. There's like TSN 1 through 5.
Oh wow.
And it's on like TSN 2 or something. Like it's one of the more important ones, as they don't shove it off onto like they don't shove it off onto like their 5th network. So it does well enough that they put it on like a main network show. So I think it does pretty well. And I mean, it's been mentioned in like the Toronto Star. It has buzz. So I think they could do it if they gave it enough time. And they'd have to, I mean, you can never promise, but you'd have to promise, you know, Kenny Omega is going to be there, Chris Jericho is going to be there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you'd have to have
You'd have to find a way to like get Bret Hart to show up or something, but I think they could do it.
Well, that could actually be a possibility now. We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute. Well, that's very promising. That's interesting, and it's cool to hear it from your perspective. And it's cool to hear like AEW could very possibly do that. That's
because if they can't do Scotiabank Arena, which holds, you know, it's an NHL NBA arena, so it holds, you know, 20,000. Mm-hmm. If they can't do that, they're not. I don't think they're going to go smaller for their debut. They're not going to set like a 10,000 seat building. I think they're going to go bigger.
That would be a little weird to do it that way.
To do their debut here in like a very small arena, it would be strange. So we'll see. It'd be really cool.
That would be super cool.
And just on the like from a optics view, like not only does 40,000, 50,000 people look really great. I mean, Skydome / Rogers Center is known for, in terms of wrestling, it's known for Hogan Warrior and Hogan Rock. Like it's known for WrestleManias.
Oh, wow, I forgot Hogan Rock was there. Wow.
So if they could do pay-per-view in a building that's known for massive WrestleManias, just from how that would look, would be really cool.
That would be super cool. I'm hoping that you get your wish. I mean,
I've been hoping for this for like a year. So
I was gonna say, I mean, yeah. So I mean, you've been hitting about it. So let's go.
I know. Before the pandemic, Tony Khan said they wanted to come to Canada, so it's been pushed back. So hopefully that happens soon. I think they also mentioned that he also mentioned wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a show like already planned for like the UK before the pandemic.
I'm pretty sure they were going to go over there. Yes.
And then they had to cancel that. So that's also somewhere they could go.
Oh yeah. I've been hearing rumblings about like a UK, like I don't know if they're going to do like a full tour or at least go over, and we'll get like, obviously we wouldn't get it would be a tape Dynamite for the States and for North America, but they at least want to go over and tape some shows over there, which I think would be cool.
That would be really cool because the UK has the UK has its own wrestling audience. That would be pretty excited for the stuff AEW does. So that'd be cool.
Yeah. So,
but now that we say that, they're just going to do shows in Chicago. So
Chicago only. It's gonna
which again, I mentioned last week. I don't have a problem with that. I understand why they do it.
Same here. Totally. So the big elephant in the room that we have not addressed yet. We found out this week that literally the boss of WWE, Vincent McMahon, or old Vinnie Mac, stepped down amidst allegations of basically sexual misconduct. Well, not basically. That's 100% what it is.
And financial misconduct, as far as we can tell. But
yes, and
I mean, this is all allegedly. We had none of this has been proven, but yes.
Yeah. Well, Vince would not step down unless it was.
Well, he retired. Didn't you hear? He just realized he's old and he just wants to go retired. Yeah. You know, when you decide that you want to retire, you do it suddenly without notice on a Friday afternoon.
Exactly.
That's how everybody retires, isn't it? Like at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. I'm just retiring. That's it. Bye. I'm never showing up again. You won't see me again. I've chosen to do this. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's how my dad retired. He just went into work one day. He was like, I don't know this sometime.
And just disappeared.
And then just disappeared. Yeah, that's very weird. Definitely thought, not to be morbid, but definitely thought the man was going to die in that chair with the headset on, yelling at somebody.
It's very, and it seems, we might as well mention that obviously this is an AEW podcast, but you
Right.
can't not mention
Yeah,
this,
we have to cover.
not only because
We
it's
have to
probably
cover
going
it.
to affect AEW, but it's a huge wrestling story. Like it's huge, so you have to talk
Yes.
about it.
I mean, I would honestly say this is bigger than when he purchased WCW, because we saw
Yeah,
that coming from a mile away that it was going to go up for sale. I mean, we
right.
didn't know that Vince was necessarily going to buy it, but that was definitely an option.
Yeah,
But
it's
this,
it's bizarre to think. Someone said that before. I saw someone say online, like he's been, if you're our age, 40ish or younger, you don't remember wrestling without him.
that's totally correct.
Like you don't remember, like it might have been around. There were territories in the 70s, but do you remember them? You
Yeah.
probably don't, right? So
Yeah. I, well, like I said, my dad was, we would watch AWA and I'm it was AWA because I was on ESPN, and then
right,
he watched WCW, or maybe it was even World Class then, or that was WCCW. I can't remember. I mean, I was sitting on my dad's lap,
right,
so I was that little. But I definitely remember like watching with him, and then like he was like the wrestling purist, and then he was like, "Oh, here, buddy, I'm gonna put this on for you. You'll like it." And I was like, "Okay." And then I saw Hulk Hogan and WWF, and I was like, "Well, this is way better than the stuff you watch, Dad." Like, and he was like, "Yeah, it is." uh, and I mean, that's all I knew. Well, not all I knew. Like I knew Flair and Dusty Rhodes and all that from watching with my dad, but I didn't care about that. I didn't know
right.
what was going on. Like,
Yeah, we mock like the sports entertainment thing, but that's what we know.
yeah.
And we've said before, like we were WWF WWF at the time. Like
Yeah.
that's the only thing I watched. I think I've mentioned before. Like we
Yeah.
didn't get Nitro at a good time, so I didn't watch it. But I don't think I would have watched it even if we got it. Like I was like so hardcore WWF that like I was like I'm not gonna watch them. They can't be as good. And I'd fall for all the WWF tricks of like, oh, the only guys who went down there are like old and washed up. I'm like, yeah, they are. I don't want to watch that. Like
Yeah.
I was 100% sold on what Vince McMahon was doing.
And I mean, you can. This is. I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, and people can fight me if they want. In the grand scheme of things, the guy never did anything positive for pro wrestling. I ever. I mean, it goes back to goes back to destroying the territories. Like
Yeah,
I was thinking about this the other day. Like, oh yeah, he went into the territories and he was going national, and he took the best guy out of here, and he took Hogan from here, and Piper from here, and Big John Studd from here, and then that made him his roster.
right,
Okay, well, there were guys on those rosters that were making a living, that were mid to bottom card guys that might not have known how to do anything else in the world except wrestle, and then
right,
they were just screwed.
right.
Like,
Which is why now when people say, first of all, oh, AEW only hires ex WWE guys, but yeah, Vince, so did Vince. That's what you do.
yeah, like,
And B, when people are like, oh, like the Tony Khan tweet when he tweeted, I loved his tweet, by the way, that like I'm
oh,
now
tweet was
the longest reigning CEO in wrestling. That was amazing. I thought it was
hundred
great. It
thousand
was
percent
hilarious.
great. Yeah,
But the fact that some people were like, well, how could you be so dismissive of what Vince McMahon have done? Like, did you know Vince McMahon? Have you ever seen Vince McMahon before? Like, that's what he did. Like, yeah, you're right. When he went into a territory and ran them out of business, he wasn't like, oh, but I feel bad. I don't want to hurt their
yeah. I'll hire
feelings.
everybody.
Right.
I'll
No, he
hire
didn't
the
care.
office. No, he
Yeah, he
just
didn't care at all.
like,
So like,
yeah, and like I like I said, fight me if you disagree with me. Anybody. uh, I drank the Kool Aid too with you and the Attitude Era, and but I mean that was all put in place because, like you said, he didn't steal, but he lured other people into his company that were already established names, and then
right.
granted gave them a platform, and people like Stone Cold like became who they were. And I
Right.
mean, he obviously did. Uh, like The Rock was there, but he didn't find The Rock. That was Rocky Johnson's son, and The Rock obviously had charisma. I mean, look at him.
Right.
Uh, there's very few stars that he actually made. I'll give him Cena,
Right.
but after Cena, that's probably it.
I mean, it's
Seriously?
the CM Punk line from his pipe bomb, and it sounds cliche, but when he's like he's a millionaire who should be a billionaire, well, he is a billionaire now. But
Right.
he dropped the ball a lot. Like he should have
Yeah.
been. He was very successful. I'm not saying he was not very successful because he started a smaller company that became a global
Yeah.
company that makes billions of dollars. So like that's success
Correct.
by most definitions. But he could have done a lot more with what he had. And I don't want to sound like, oh, Vince McMahon was not successful. Like, obviously, he was successful.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's never has anything. There's probably the next 5 generation of McMahons are never gonna have to worry about anything. Like
Right.
they could totally just sit around all day and like they'll just be millionaires still. Like
Which brings me to the point now. I mean, both of us have stopped watching WWE. I'll
correct.
watch it on occasion. I'll watch
Mm-hmm.
WWE for like Royal Rumble or Mania, but I'm not watching their weekly shows. I'm not like you're not watching their shows. Like, but we
Correct.
did at one point.
100%.
If Vince McMahon is actually gone and the shows get better, will you watch them? Like
I'm gonna.
say it gets better. Say it's a different show and it's people are talking about how good it is. Would you watch it?
I'm still gonna say no because I'm too invested on other things that I watch right now.
Right.
I when the NHL comes back, uh, I will always watch the Penguin games,
Right.
unless they fall on a Wednesday.
Right.
That's or Friday, but usually NHL is over by 10 o'clock, especially if they
Yeah.
start at 7. Um, but no, because I'll watch Dark and Elevation on Mondays and Tuesdays. Maybe if they do something like on YouTube, I would watch that. Uh, but they probably won't because they own the network, so they'll put it on
Right.
there.
It's also
I'm just
Raw
gonna.
being 3 hours. I feel like I can't
I
watch
was
three
just gonna.
hours of
I
like
was just gonna say that you're trying to invest me into 5 hours of television more a week when I'm already watching about 5 hours of AEW. Like I don't need
right.
another 5 hours
Right.
of wrestling in my life.
Right.
Uh, I mean, there's always that chance. Like, I mean, with my cable, I do get the network for free and I don't watch it now. But
Yeah.
maybe if it does turn around, I will watch like at least the pay-per-views because
Right.
why not? That I could do. Uh, but I think that ship has sailed for me. And unless they really, 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 really prove it, I think I'm over it. And
Yeah.
I'm
I just
I'm
don't know. That's the debate everyone's having now, right? Like Triple H is apparently in charge of creative, and
correct.
he probably will be different. I mean, every person is different, um, but I don't know how different. Like, I don't know how different this show is going to be because Triple H, from what he knows about producing television, and everyone who works there, they know it from Vince McMahon. Like
And Kevin Dunn.
they learned what yeah Kevin Dunn. They learned what they learned how to produce wrestling, and to them, a wrestling show is what Vince McMahon puts out, right? Like
Yeah,
that's what they know. So
yeah.
how different are they going to be? I don't know. Like I
Well,
don't know
that's what
how different the shows are going to be now.
and that's what I think I messaged you about it. Um, you were like, "Oh, how do you feel about this?" And I'm like, "Uh, like you got to prove it. Like I'm not gonna fall for a bunch of names on paper, and there's basically the same people. Like sometimes you have to clean the house to get a different result.
Yeah,
Like, what's the famous saying? You keep planting corn, you're gonna get corn. Well,
right.
the same people have been there. Like, literally, think about it. Like Triple H and Shawn Michaels have been there since, well, Triple H since at least
Like
92 ish,
90,
91,
90 mid 90s probably. Yeah,
mid 90s. Okay.
94 maybe,
Michaels,
95, yeah.
yeah. Well, Michaels probably what about 90, 89 with the
Yeah, like
Rockers?
late 80s probably.
Yeah. Uh, and okay, now they're in producer roles, like you said, but who are they going to hire? Their
Right.
friends.
Right.
Like, I'm sure Road Dogg is going to get hired again
Right.
because why wouldn't you? Um,
Two
you
things on
know,
this. I mean, one thing people point to Triple H's time as being in charge of NXT and how it was different from WWE, and it was like it was a
it
different
was.
show. It was a different
Yeah.
show than WWE, but the reason they did that was because at the time NXT started, the indie wrestling was starting to get hot. Like the Young Bucks
Hmm.
were around, and they wanted to compete with that. They wanted to stomp that out before it became a thing.
Yes.
So they hired a bunch of the best indie wrestlers and they put on a very good WWE version of an indie show, and it was good. Like I'm not knocking NXT. Like NXT had a lot. The original NXT had a lot of really good matches, a lot of really good pay-per-views. I really liked it. Like they had some great stuff going on, but they did it because they wanted to crush something that was already there. That's not what Triple H prefers as a style. He's not a secret, ROH indie fan who
Right.
his whole dream was to put on an indie show and he was blocked from doing so. Like if you ever seen Triple H wrestle, he wrestles WWE style. He's a slow, muscle bound, epic match type of guy. He's not a flips and kicks type of guy.
Right.
So I honestly don't believe that Triple H deep down wants to put on an indie NXT type production. I think he realized that that was a role he could fill and that's something he could do until AEW did it and was more successful doing it. And
Right.
then that didn't really work anymore. So then I think he's going to be more of a Vince McMahon type guy than people think he's going to be.
And you had a tweet that basically summed up everything. Whenever you're like, oh, people are telling me now that AEW is going to fold and go under. Oh, wait, didn't the roster without half the NXT roster somehow beat them every week?
Right. Yeah,
So, yeah.
I was thinking like, oh no, there's no way they can compete with a WWE show run by Triple H. No, they did that, and they did it very well. Like,
And with less talent. Like,
yeah,
not saying that, I mean, not saying that the people were less talented. I mean, they didn't have Adam Cole and
and like they didn't
the
have even the size
Undisputed
of a
Elite.
roster they have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they did
How
that with,
much does Triple H wish that this had happened 2 years ago before all those people got fired, though? Like he
well,
hired all those people, he gave them jobs on television. Vince
yep.
fired them, and then like, okay, now that we fired everyone that you hired, now you're in charge.
Yeah. Well, it was funny, like, when all this news broke, Sean Ross Sapp did a live YouTube show, and he basically said the same thing you said, and he said, "How weird is it that in 2022 that all of well, a majority of NXT now works in a company called AEW, and the company that they used to work for was put out of business because Triple H hired all them for NXT. Then Tony Khan buys Ring of Honor and brings it back."
That's good.
Yeah, and like it's the truth though, and
Yeah.
like you
I
said,
mean,
like if
even
this,
we went from like a few months ago. Triple H has health issues. He has to
yeah,
step away. And Stephanie McMahon wants to spend more time with her family. And then
yeah,
Vince McMahon came out on SmackDown and was like, "I'm not going anywhere." And then like a
like
month later, they're like, "Actually, he's leaving. They're in charge again." Like,
yeah, and it's like what a like it's almost absurd to think about.
yeah,
Literally, it's literally almost absurd to think about that this happened the way that it
like you're
did.
the one. We mentioned or like we alluded to earlier. You're the one who told me
Yeah.
he
Oh,
stepped down. Like I was walking home from the grocery store like carrying groceries, and I'm like, I'll check my phone, and and like it doesn't even seem like a when you told me I'm like you're joking like that can't be a thing that can't be real like
I,
even knowing what he was going through and that he
right.
temporarily stepped back and like I never thought he would like leave like there's no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I've been trying to stay off Twitter, like just cut back. on my daily usage because, like you said earlier, I mean, the past few days I've been living on Twitter again.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't have anything going on. I just got back from, I was hanging out with my dad. We had a couple beers. I was like, I'll go on Twitter, see what's going on. And literally, I walked in my bedroom and I just sat on the edge of my bed and I was like, I'm gonna, put on some shorts, go outside, see what's going on Twitter. And I sat on the edge of my bed. I was like, oh my god, what? What? I was like, and I was like, I gotta tell Rick. I like started, and I was like, oh my god. And then it was just one after another of
Yeah.
people like corroborating it. I just could not believe that this happened. Like,
and I can't believe that he resigned. He didn't retire. Like he left.
he resigned. Yeah.
But I can't believe that he resigned with a tweet. Like that's never how I thought this was going to happen. Like, I'm not going to get into what his problems are because I don't know legally. I don't know anything about the law. I don't know anything about that. But I mean, Raw on Monday was from Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, right?
And better or worse, that's an arena that means a lot to WWE and to Vince McMahon. For him to resign on a tweet like 3 days earlier, and not have like a goodbye thing at Madison Square, like if he was actually retiring, like if this was a retirement, like they said it was,
they would have had like a farewell to Vince.
They would have had a goodbye Vince night and popped a rating. And if they had announced that this was Vince McMahon's last show, like I would have watched.
I would probably watch that. I would. I'm stumbling over my words here. Minus the allegations.
Yes.
If the allegations didn't exist.
Yes.
Because he doesn't deserve a send off.
Right.
I don't care.
So that's how you know that this is an actual very serious, real problem. The fact that they didn't do that, because every single fiber of Vince McMahon wanted to do that. He wanted to go out on TV and have a big farewell and everyone cheer for him. And like the fact that he didn't do that means it's bad. Like it's not good for him, and it's not going to get any better. Something is coming that isn't good. Yeah. And they have to get him out of there as fast as they can because it's going to look really bad.
And because they don't want any trace of him, because that stock's going to plummet.
Yeah.
But
so,
go
ahead.
I was going to say, if you want to feel bad about yourself, I was reading today that WWE stock went up like 3%.
Yeah, didn't he make like $150 million or something today?
Yeah, today. Made $141.7 million.
Yeah.
Like, wow, cool. Unless I hit the lottery, I will never make that much money in my entire life. And he's under scumbag allegations.
Yeah, so like I get on some level, I get the inclination to be like, oh, you should, thank him for all the stuff that he's done. Because I mean, like, better or worse, I watched a lot of WWF, and I liked it, and I enjoyed the shows, and that's a lot of entertainment that he provided me, or his company provided me. But like, knowing what you know about what these allegations are, and knowing the situation, and just knowing Vince McMahon is what we know about him as a person, like everything everything you've heard about Vince McMahon. It's hard to go, oh, thanks, let's just ignore all the many, many people that you've hurt and made feel horrible and made feel like you can't, like, I personally can't be like, thanks Vince, I'm gonna forget all that horrible stuff you did. No, like it's sometimes you can separate what someone is as a person from the person they are on TV, or what they've accomplished. And I think Vince McMahon is at that point where, like, you can't separate Vince McMahon, the person, from WWE.
And that's why I think I can't get myself to watch anymore.
Yeah.
I think this was so bad, and it just made me feel a certain way. Like, I again, doesn't affect me one way or the other. But if somebody that I don't know can make me feel a certain way because of something that they did, there's power to that. And I can't overlook that. Now, if that there is going to be a positive with Triple H, someone brought up a good point on Twitter, and again, of course, I didn't write it down to give them credit, so I apologize. he seems to have a good grasp on the Hall of Fame. I think the Hall of Fame will get better.
Yes.
And
Like
it will be,
he's the one who got Bruno Sammartino to come back finally
and
after
the
he.
Warrior, and
Yeah.
like he's gonna give, uh, and it might even be people that don't work for the company, like, if I'm trying to think of like a lifelong,
Like
like,
Demolition's not in the Hall of Fame
there you go, like put
because of
Demolition in, or
because
yeah,
they were upset about a lot of lawsuits and things like that. But like they should be in the Hall of Fame.
100% they should be in the Hall of Fame. Or there's like even like, I don't want to say indie guys, but like, there's low card WCW guys and ECW guys that obviously were never going to be put in because Vince doesn't, like, if you never
Right.
worked for him, you didn't work. You
Right.
didn't exist.
Right.
I think Triple H will bring in a lot of people that, you know, for the Hall of Fame, that people our age would like to see.
Yeah.
Uh, and that maybe did get overlooked or screwed because of who was in charge at the time. So I think that will be a positive for sure.
Yeah, he does seem to have. I mean, there's always exceptions, but he does seem to have a better ability to interact with people. Like he's a better people person. He doesn't seem to like have
Right.
the grudges or the weird hangups with people. Like there's some people that Vince McMahon's like never going to talk to again because of something they did 20 years ago. Like I don't think he has that same issue.
Yes. And yeah, he can overlook things, and he could bite the bullet. And to steal a line from Vince, the thing he always used to say, Triple H will do what is best for business. I
Yeah.
totally think that is true. And
But then,
you know,
then I think of Triple H in like the early 2000s and like his feud with Booker T and like yeah, like that was not what was best for business. So maybe now that he's
no,
not a
that's
wrestler,
true.
now that he's not a wrestler anymore, maybe he can see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because
I
when he was a wrestler, he didn't put people over. Like later on, he did. Like later
yeah.
on in his career, but at his peak, he was like squashing everybody.
Like that's one thing
And
I've
I'm still
never
mad that he beat
understood.
Sting at WrestleMania. I don't know if that was his
Oh,
call or if that was Vince's call, but that still makes me upset.
and it made no sense. Sting deserves a WrestleMania, but he never had one. And
Right.
anyway, uh, that's one thing I will never understand about pro wrestlers. Like, yes, you work your butt off to get in the situation that you're in, but everybody and their mother knows that it's fake.
Right.
If if I'm wrestling you tonight and the agent comes up and's like, hey, Blasco, Rick's going over tonight. Like, nope, not happening. Not on my
Right.
watch. He would
Yeah, there's a
never
lot
beat
of
me.
wrestlers like that's the flaw you have with even like people like Bret Hart, where Bret Hart like I'm outside not talking about Shawn Michaels, but there's other matches where I saw an excerpt from his book once where he was wrestling Dino Bravo, and Bret Hart like broke a rib in his match and like couldn't wrestle,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "But I wasn't gonna let him go over." Like it's not real, right? Like just it's fine.
Right.
Like let him go. It doesn't mean anything. Like
Exactly. And like the fans, the second that it's over, then the next music hits. That's how much the fans care. Like, they're not taking that
right,
home with them. Like,
right,
oh my God, Dino Bravo beat Bret Hart. Like, well, I
right,
ain't going to work tomorrow.
right.
My God, what? I mean, I don't get that mentality. I mean,
Yeah,
even if it's
I think I
like,
would be more upset if whatever. I mean, I'm not a wrestler, obviously, but I feel like as a fan at least, I'm more upset when like something doesn't make sense in the story. Like we talked about last time, the Eddie Kingston thing. Like it doesn't upset me that
yeah,
Eddie Kingston lost the match. It upsets me
right,
that doesn't make sense for like the story they were trying to tell. Like the Triple
right,
H Sting match, it didn't make sense. The whole thing was Sting had never been in WWE,
right.
and he was coming to like stop the tyranny of Triple H, and then he lost. Like, why are we doing that? That doesn't make sense for like a storyline perspective.
That was
It's
his
not that
punishment.
I don't think he should lose a match. I just don't. I don't like when they don't make any sense.
I
And a lot of the
totally agree.
stuff Triple H did, like the storyline with Booker T, like it was basically he hid it under the guise of, you're from WCW, so that's why I'm treating you badly. But like, it was realistically, he was treating him badly because of his race.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was thinly veiled
And
racism.
you can't say veiled racist things and then win.
And then win, right? Exactly.
Like, you have to lose. The only outcome of that storyline was he loses very, very badly and is humiliated, and Booker T wins. And oh yeah, that guy was wrong. That's why he lost, because he was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so that's
you almost make that a squash. You let him run his mouth, and then okay, well I get to put my hands on you now. Okay, well let's go, and then you just destroy him, and people forget about it.
So that's why when people say maybe he's different, that was 20 years ago. So maybe non-wrestler Triple H is a different guy than wrestler Triple H was. But I find it hard to believe that he's suddenly going to be this like refreshing new face for wrestling, when like that was never how he was when he was a wrestler.
I agreed. It is very interesting the way that it's going to be run, but until you prove otherwise, I don't think there's going to be obviously a difference. Like, you put anybody else in charge of anything, there's going to be a difference.
But some things will change, and probably for the better. I mean, they're probably going to stop randomly changing people's pushes, or randomly, like, just because a lot of times someone would have a gimmick and they'd run it for 5 weeks, and the Vince go, I don't like it anymore, and it would just be gone. Like, I think stuff like that is going to stop. I think they might have a more cohesive. It will just be the whims of one man who decides what goes on TV.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're going to get more storytelling. Like, Triple H is a pro wrestler by trade,
and I think they're going to have a story, like a team, like who does the like who writes the stories and puts them together. And you won't have that team write a bunch of stories and then half an hour before the show's on, some guy decides, I don't like any of this, and writes it himself. Like, I think that will change.
Yeah. And apparently Nick Khan is going to get some of his Hollywood friends in to be writers.
I do hope it means, I don't know if this is a Vince thing or a company. Stephanie was the branding officer for a while, so maybe this was her, and then it won't change. They don't talk like human beings.
No.
We've talked about this before, when they say, like, I will challenge you for a championship opportunity at the next premium live. Like, that's not how people speak. So it sounds weird. So maybe that will be different. I don't know.
All you have to do is, well, see, this is the corner that they're painted in now. I was thinking of this earlier. They have now totally, except minus a few people. Like, I mean, there is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and a couple other people that were like indie wrestlers, and like, well, even people like Orton, he comes from a wrestling lineage.
Right.
He understands how to deliver a promo. Just give them a microphone and let them talk.
Right.
Be like, this is how you have to end, but how you get there, I don't care. At the end, you have to challenge so and so to a match. Okay, cool. I got it. Oh, and you have 3 minutes. Okay, I got it. Let them go. How they painted themselves into this corner. They only hire like I guess entertainer people, influencers, if that's what you want to call them. Like those people have no idea how to do anything.
I mean, that brings up another point that I've heard from a lot of people is, do you think, in terms of AEW, I mean, AEW has guys under contract, on no one's contract is forever. Do you think now, under the new management, are they more likely to want to hire someone from AEW? The old WWE, the Vince McMahon WWE, wasn't hiring anymore. They were hiring athletes and teaching them to be WWE wrestlers, sports entertainers. So are they more likely to hire someone from AEW now because Vince isn't there?
See, again, they painted themselves into a corner. I think that would have to come from the board.
Right.
Because they do have a say. That is their money. Or that's not that's stockholders' money that you're paying for.
But say the money was all the same. Like, say they could pay, collegiate football player, $100,000, or they could pay, I'm making up numbers, but they could pay a collegiate football player $100,000, or they could pay Swerve Strickland $100,000, and the board doesn't care which one you pick. They tell you have X number of money to spend on someone.
Well,
Are they now more likely to hire someone like a former AEW guy over a former football player?
I could see them trying to do it like to like a mega star, but
Right.
like I don't think they would be interested in taking even a Darby Allin.
Right.
I just don't think they would be like, why is he like that? Why, like, he does what? He jumps off of things and lights things on fire at his house.
Yeah,
Like, why?
because
We
I mean,
don't
the
want
same sense,
that.
they still are a public company. They still are.
Yeah.
It's different than when it's. I mean, Tony Khan runs AEW himself. He can decide if he wants someone there or not there, and he really doesn't have to answer to anyone other than maybe his dad.
Correct.
But he doesn't have a board to respond to or anything like that. So.
And like the interesting thing with that is, again, it's going to open up again. Are they going to be allowed to do like the extra stuff now, or is that still just privilege to, if you did that before, you can still do it, but if you don't do it, like Logan Paul, like he's allowed to have his YouTube channel,
Right.
but nobody else is. They're not even allowed to have Twitch channels and play video games. Like, why?
Right.
Like, these people have lives outside of your company, but maybe that's a board thing, because if someone drops an F-bomb, they could say, well, wait a minute,
Right.
That makes us look bad.
Yeah, it'll depend on how hands-on the board is. They may not watch. I mean, they may not watch the shows for all we know. Like they may not be.
Too. Yeah.
They're not wrestling people. They might not care about wrestling. They just want to make money, right? Which is what a board is there for. So if they're making money, they're happy. But you're right. Could someone lose a sponsor because of something they did, or could someone lose?
Yeah,
could have Fox be mad at them because of something somebody did, like the Briscoes. The Briscoes won't be on AEW, and not because AEW necessarily doesn't want them there, but because the network doesn't want them there.
True.
So that something like that could still come up. Like there could be a board or a network or a sponsor that doesn't want certain things, but I don't know.
That just that whole situation, like, it makes me mad, and it doesn't affect my life in any way whatsoever.
Right.
Like, I couldn't imagine working someplace and them being like, oh, okay, Rick, well, you're not allowed to do this anymore. Well, that guy does it. Well, he's different than you.
Yeah, and it's weird because I would understand if they said, you're, I don't know, The Miz, and you can't use the name The Miz because we own that. So you can't. Yeah. So you can't do a Twitch channel. But if you want to do a Twitch channel under your own name, that's you. And I get that you became famous because you won WWE, but like that doesn't mean they control the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's what it boiled down to. I think Vince was such a control freak that he had to do that. But again, they're now painted in this corner. Like, it was, I'm talking about it about 3 or 4 months ago with Tyler Breeze on his Twitch channel. They were playing a game, and like Tyler Breeze basically just let it say, basically, I don't care if they offer me $10 billion, I would never go back to that place, because it has left such a bad taste in so many people's mouths. I don't know if, I mean, again, you really have to prove you'd really have to change a lot of people's minds that were there already.
Yeah, I think that will take a long time. I mean, most people won't think, oh, Vince is gone, I'm immediately have a different opinion. I'm like, you wait and see. Like, we're going to wait and see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. Like, nobody knows what's going to happen. This has been Vince McMahon's company forever. So
yes, I think from 1972, I think he bought it from his dad.
Yeah, so like that's like 50 years. So no one knows what it's going to be like. So it's going to take some time, and it's not going to change overnight. They're a massive global public company.
Yeah, well, I think it was Meltzer said, he hated. I think he said something to the point of like, I hate to break this to you, but the real change is like 2.5 to 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Like
I think small things will change. I think they might be able to
yeah.
use different terms. Like they won't necessarily speak the same way, or they won't like have the
Oh
same
yeah, they'll be able
restrictions
to
on them.
like say wrestling now maybe.
Yeah, or like
Uh,
yeah, it'll be different. Like someone said, Michael Cole's probably the happiest about this because Vince McMahon won't be yelling at him in his ear the whole time anymore. Like I don't think anyone
yeah.
else yells. Like I'm sure Tony Khan is on a headset when he's backstage, so
Yeah.
he can tell the commentators, "Oh, by the way, plug this match that's coming up next."
Yeah.
Right, but
Yes.
he's not screaming at you for
And
the
calling
duration
you
of
an
the show.
idiot and
Right.
he used to just berate Michael Cole for 5 hours a
Yeah,
week.
like Mick Foley said he laughed because he couldn't take that. He's like, I can't speak. I can't do commentary with someone yelling at me the whole time. Like I can't do it. So that'll probably stop. So
That is so absurd. Like, why would you have to scream at somebody?
it's very weird.
Like, don't get me wrong. I cannot stand Michael Cole. I think he's terrible. But was he terrible or was he just terrified? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like, we're going to get to see now. Like, Michael Cole might be incredible. But
Yeah.
for
Like if someone
years,
said you have to do this podcast and you're gonna do it, but the whole time you're talking, I'm just gonna be
someone's.
yelling at you. I'm just gonna be yelling at
Right.
you. And you
Yeah,
have to
for the.
pretend that I'm not doing that and just do your
Right.
job. Like
Yeah. Like, it's unbelievable to me.
so yeah, I
Uh,
think maybe he'll be better.
and more power to him if he is.
Yeah. It
Shit.
will be definitely interesting to see what happens. I think it will in some ways affect AEW because a lot of a lot of the reason people watch AEW is because they used to watch WWE or WWF
Correct.
and stopped liking their shows, so they started watching AEW. Now, do those same people also just was it Vince McMahon or was it the way the show was written? Because if you just don't like WWE because of Vince McMahon, you may not be willing to come back. But
Right.
if you have no problem with Vince McMahon, but you just thought the shows were boring, if the shows change, maybe you'll go back. You don't know.
Right.
So
Or
it'll be interesting to see.
yeah, very interesting. And I mean, game changer for sure in the fact that I never thought the man would retire. I
No, never.
like literally thought they'd be like, "Oh, we have to cut the commercial. Why? Oh, Vince died."
Right.
Well, sorry, we have to stop the show. No, they wouldn't
And
do
it's
that either. The
no
show would
they
just
no
continue.
he would have wanted the show to go on, didn't you know?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. He would totally have wanted the show to go on. He
Yes.
totally would have. Like that's how arrogant he is.
But and the way it happened was just like I said, like it was a tweet on a Friday afternoon. It was
Yep.
not a like big farewell. It was not a like Eric Bischoff got an on-screen farewell from WWE. Paul Heyman
Yeah,
gets Jeff Jarrett is on WWE TV right now when when Vince McMahon is not. Like
that's so weird to me.
it's very weird.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, you said it an hour ago. Like our entire lives, that's all we've known in WWF/WWE is Vince. Like he's
Right.
been a part of our lives if you watch wrestling for our entire life. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it's you know for what happens is scummy, but it is very weird to think that he is gone
Yes.
and still alive. Never thought
Yes.
like I'm not trying to laugh at him being alive. Never thought that like that he would just step away. So
No.
whatever is going on is pretty brutal. Has to be.
It's big because like I said, like he was on when was he on SmackDown? Like a month ago when he came out and was like, ha 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 and
Not
like
even.
dance. Yeah, and
Not,
like and that was like, I'm never going anywhere, and then just gone. Like so it's gotta
yeah.
be whatever it is that's gonna come out.
Well, I was gonna say apparently we'll find out this week. There's a HBO documentary and more Wall Street Journal to come out this
Yeah.
week, and it's oh boy.
It's something that they felt like they needed him out of the not in the company so that when it comes out they can go, oh, we already got rid of him. The rest of the company isn't guilty. It was just him, and now he's gone. So don't worry. But
Yeah, but they better hope that like I was reading something uh this afternoon about some finance lawyer was talking about, like, if they can somehow prove that like Stephanie, Shane, or even Triple H like remotely knew about this,
Yeah.
they can be implicated in it. Like,
Well, I'm
imagine
not saying
that.
it. I'm not saying it'll necessarily work. I'm saying that's their strategy. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I think their thoughts are
Oh
just,
no,
oh,
I totally understand what you're saying, but I just
like
like
their
that's
thoughts are
something
like, if
I
he's
never.
just not here, we can deny that we had anything to do with it, but maybe they can't.
Right. That's like the gnarly part. Like, not everybody's out of the woods yet. So, um, hey, all I could say, and this just popped in my head right now, how crazy is it that HBO could air the very damning thing that like literally destroyed Vince McMahon, and they also work with AEW.
Right.
Wow, it's a small world, isn't
I mean, there's a lot of ironies attached to this. Someone said, because the Ric Flair's last match is technically promoted by Jim Crockett Promotions.
Yeah.
And I think that the tweet was, Vince McMahon has left WWE and Jim Crockett Promotions has a show next week. You lose.
Yeah, and
Like
it
it's
was
all
like we played
very,
the long con or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Oh no, it's a marathon, not a sprint, which was what
It's
Triple H
marathon
said to
nights.
which is what Triple H said to AEW.
Right. Hey, it's the age of social media. Something that you say will come back and bite you.
It's an interesting time. Like, as much as I was very pro WWF in the 90s, I know this is dragging on really long. As
No,
much
we're
as I
cool. We're
was
cool.
very pro WWF in the 90s, um, it was good for wrestling that there was more than one company. There was WWF, there was
Yeah.
WCW, there was even ECW. Like, it made
Yeah.
everything better. It made the shows better. And I didn't even
Hmm.
watch Nitro, but their existence made the show better.
Yeah.
So
Competition is a good thing.
yeah, so hopefully, I mean, hopefully WWE, even if I'm not going to watch it, hopefully it gets better and it's gets more people to into watching wrestling, and it gets more wrestlers money, and it gets better television, and it'll make AEW better if they have to compete against someone. Because
Yeah.
when they had to compete, quote unquote, against NXT, like, they didn't really have to. Like, that
Right.
was WWE's third brand against the company with all this hype. So
Yeah.
like, that wasn't really competing. So, and then I know they're not on the same day, and then they're not at the same time, but they're in the same business. So hopefully it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
That's as
I
positive as I can
agree.
make this Vince McMahon situation. That hopefully it's good for everyone.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll end our first bonus episode. Uh,
Yes.
like I said earlier, we're we plan on covering Ring of Honor. Um, if the more it happens, like we just went over this pay-per-view as a bonus episode, and you know, uh, when there is TV or another pay-per-view, we will also cover it for everybody. Um, but we felt we had to do a little bonus episode and add on the Vince stuff because that, like I said, other than him buying WCW, this is probably the biggest story in pro wrestling in the past 25 years, honestly.
Yeah. I'd
So,
say, yeah, for sure.
so, thank you everybody for listening. Rick, as always, it's been an honor. And I don't know, I don't have anything quirky to say at the end. So on that note, on that note, we'll just end it. And until next week, later.